The tractor used to be your dad's
Used to be my dad's. He bought it new when I was in the service.
when you were in the Navy?
When I was in the Navy, and he used it 1 year and had a stroke, so he couldn't use it the second year. And the neighbor helped get the crop in, and he used the tractor to do that. And when he sold the crop that fall, he gave it all to the folks. He didn't keep any of it after doing all the work. And those are days gone by. And after that, when I got out of the service, I farmed with it, I don't know, 3 or 4 years before I bought a bigger tractor to use. But I kept using that. And then when my son started farming, he used it. And then the next generations didn't use it. They had to take tractor rides and play with it. But it's been in the generation, five generations. And I have been disabled for a few years, and I always told Calvin when I was gone I wanted him to have the tractor. So while I'm still here, I decided that it would be best if we brought it out to Bryan, Ohio, and let the family use it and the great-grandkids grow up on it and have fun with it like we've had.
So I'm sure that they had bigger tractors.
Oh, they had a lot bigger tractors.
Why did you keep that tractor?
Because that's what we wanted to do, and it was a good tractor, and it has done a lot of work. I've had 2 different mounted corn pickers. I did custom corn picking and plowed with it and everything, and so did my son. And his biggest use, I think, was on a feed grinder he used to grind feed for the cattle and the hogs. And we've always enjoyed it. It's been a good running tractor, and I have had it painted twice, and I had M&W pistons and sleeves put in it, which gave it more power, and it was a 6-volt tractor, and after we done that, the 6-volt battery didn't want to turn it over too fast to start. So I converted it to a 8-volt battery, and the second time I had it painted, we put in NW pistons and sleeves, and the guy that done the work thought it ought to need painting again, so we let him paint it, and then we run it for years, and it got looking pretty bad. And after I had to quit farming, I used it to plow gardens with and mowing. And then I decided I wanted to restore it. So I started in with it, and the first thing I done was had it sandblasted and painted. And the people in town seen that old tractor sitting out along the building. And then after I got it painted, they couldn't believe that was the same tractor. But it was. And I guess that's pretty well the history of it. We've all enjoyed it, and we hope and pray that this time out here, it'll be just as good for these families.
It will be.
It will be. I'm sure it will be. And
You've had a lot of farm equipment your life.
Oh
Why
yes, oh yes.
why has this tractor been so special to you?
And because it's always been in the family. That was it was my dad's second tractor, but it was my first tractor. And I just always enjoyed it and liked it. And it's just been a good tractor. And I have taken several tractor rides with people we've gone on 3 and 4 hours one way on tractor drives, and we've had a lot of fun with it that way. And
What do you think when you see it here today?
beautiful. I'm just so happy for everybody. I know that the family's really going to enjoy it, and that's what I want. Grace and I both. Grace is my wife.
Well, thank you for restoring it for all of us
But,
too.
well,
You did that.
I'm glad I did, and I'm glad. You don't know how glad I am. It's here. I really am.
So I want to ask you about what it was like when you were a kid. I know that all of these little grandkids here probably wouldn't even believe what it was like when you were a kid to grow up on a farm. You didn't have a
No.
What was it like when you were a kid?
I started working as a hired man when I was 10 years old during World War II. My neighbor had one son and one daughter that lived at home, and they were people of age, and the son had to go to service. So they wanted me to come and help him. And I was 10 years old. I did. I worked from daylight till dark, 50 cents a day. At the end of the week, I had $3, and I thought that was a lot of money. And it was at that time, not now. And we didn't have anything modern, no electricity, no water, just outhouses, and everything was a lot of handwork then. We raised a good garden, and we had some milk cows that we milked, and chickens we raised, and that's what we lived on. Back then and during the wartime, gasoline was rationed. Could not buy it because it was short. My mother had a Maytag washing machine, and the fuel, you mix gasoline with oil to run the motor, and she had to have a permit to buy gasoline for that sewing machine. That's how scarce it was. And the farmers couldn't buy new tires for their cars, but they just come out with the rubber-tired wagons about that time. If they bought a new wagon, it had new tires on it, so they took them all, put them on their cars, and put the old ones on the wagons. But back then, if it was scarce, you couldn't get it. Now, it's scarce, but if you got the money, there's plenty of it. That's the difference.
So I know you tell lots of stories about when you were a kid.
Yes.
What's your favorite story from when you were a kid?
Oh, my. You got me there. I don't really know as I had any. I just enjoyed life, and I've had a lot of different experiences. I know one time my two brothers had married sisters from Florida, and they wanted to bring one of them wanted to have his wife bring her mother up to visit with us. So at that time I was still 10 years old. So I got in the car and I drove to Carthage to pick them up at the railroad station. And we didn't have gravel roads, we had mud roads. So it was kind of bad getting there and back, but we made it. And I was really embarrassed because I knew that those people living in Florida did not live like we had to. And my sister-in-law, she still talks about that trip. She remembers me coming after them and bringing them, taking them home, or back to the depot when they left. And she has been my sister-in-law since I was 10 years old. And this year she was at our whewell family reunion. And that was our 18th family reunion. And we had every other year, so that is, we have the reunion going on for 36 years. And that's the fun time of my life now. I really enjoy that reunion. And I guess when we first got married was another fun time.
Tell me about that.
Well, we didn't spend much money on it. There was my wife and I, and we had a bridesmaid and a bridegroom, and that was it. And we went to Carthage that evening after we were married. They had a little eating place at the back in the alley there in Carthage, and they had one table in it, and we had French fries and a sandwich for supper. So then after that we went to the movie, and then when we got up for breakfast the next morning, Grace was fixing my breakfast, and I read her about it. Yes, the bacon wasn't browned, it was black, it was burnt. And we still laugh about that. But we've had a lot of happy experiences during our marriage. We've been married 67 years. And my dad told me when we were married, about 2 days after we were married, he told me that this marriage won't last very long. I sure wish he was around now. I don't know what he called very long, but 67 years is quite a while. And it's been a good marriage, really has. We've been so lucky to have such a nice family, and they've been lucky to have such nice families, and it's just all one big happy family. And that's why I'm so glad that the tractor is still with the family.
So I want to ask you about Grandma.
Real quick, just the mic.
The microphone?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to pick up the microphone fell here. Full on ya? Okay. There we go. We'll put it right there. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. I want to ask you about Grandma.
My mother?
No, Grace, my grandmother, Grace.
Oh, your
wife.
grandmother.
I want to ask you, how did you meet her?
Well, we met when I was a senior in high school in Bowen, and she was from West Point, and she was a sophomore then. So after I graduated from high school, I went and asked her for a date one day. Well, she took me up on it. Now, I was going to take her down to Minden to the county fair. So when I got down to county fair, I'd made a mistake, and it was the week before. So we went to Quincy then and had seen the movie. And that was just one of my mistakes. But it's been a very good marriage, and we're both so glad that our family have been so good to us. And I don't know of anybody that's got family any better than ours. I just can't. A lot of people just think everything about money. And I've always said that I think I'm one of the richest people in the county, because the rich ones, they have to go pull out a drawer, look at the figures in the book to see what they're worth. I says, heck, I can sit around the table 3 times a day and see what I'm worth. Can't beat that. And they all worked hard and graduated from college, and we worked hard to help them get through, and by working together, we got the job done. And I'm proud of all of them.
What are you most proud of?
Being proud, I guess. I don't know as I have anything the most proud of, but I just have explained it that I'm most proud of the family. And they're good.
Can I ask you about the Navy?
Sure.
Why did you enlist?
Well, my family was a Navy family. I had a brother that put in 20 years, and I had one that put in 6 years and shipped over for another. And after he shipped over, they decided that he was hard hearing, so they discharged him on disability. He was a signalman on a carrier. And at that time, they didn't think anything about earplugs or anything, so he lost his hearing. But I started going to the Navy Reserve in Quincy, and I went there 4 years before I went active. But the reason I went to the Navy, because we were a Navy family. Proud of it. And the VA now is helping us out and really been good to us. I'm really glad that we've gone. And
So one of my favorite stories that you've told is about what you did when you were overseas. And can you tell me what your job was?
I was an electrician in the Navy, and we had a, excuse me, that was a good position because we traveled the whole ship. We had electricity every place. And I went over for Liberty one time. I went with the group of men. The captain told us to stay together, and we stayed together, but when we got back, I did not appreciate that kind of a liberty, so I never went over anymore. I stayed aboard ship for 2 years, except when we got to a beach or something, why I would go over and go swimming. But when I went in, I was scared to death. I was just a kid. Bowen and West Point, about the big town I'd been in. And I went aboard the ship and I saluted the officer of the deck. And he looked at my orders and he says, Billy Whewell, are you related to Red Whewell? I said, yes. I said, he's my brother. Oh my, he said, we used to live together. Well, me and my wife lived with next to him and his wife when we were instructors at Chicago. And boy, did that make a relief for me. And he was the best man. He'd even stand liberty for me when I wanted to go swimming. And that was when I went to the engine room. There were two guys down there that had gone to school with my brother. So that helped too. And I washed blues and pressed them while I was in the service and showed the movie every night. And I did quite well by staying aboard ship and working.
So I want to ask you, your brother Red, was that Uncle Robert or Uncle Dale?
Would you repeat that, please?
Your brother Red, when he said Red Whewell?
Okay, that was Robert.
And then what did they call you?
Pinky. My name was Pinky. Got that when I was in grade school. Stuck with me until I lost my hair. And I always had good red hair I always wore a curl on this side the whole time I was in the Navy, and until my hair started falling out, well, that was the end of my curl.
So it seems like I remember a story that when they needed to get something from one ship to another ship, you had to do that. Is that true, that you would go?
That's true. They would, if we had to do something on another ship, they put us across on a rope. And we went from one ship to the other that way. And that's the way we got all of our supplies and everything. And they didn't tie the ropes, they couldn't, because the ships were leaning, in the waves. So the crews was on each ship with their hands on the rope or running up and down the ship to keep us from getting wet, but it didn't always work.
That sounds like it would be really scary. Was it scary?
It was scary. And one time we were transferred over to a ship to grade a fire ordeal, and it was rough. And so we told them that they had to lower the gig to get us back to our other ship, or they had two new sailors. And that's what they done.
Now, I want to ask, you have such a nice family.
Right.
What did you and Grandma do to have such a nice family? How did all your kids turn out to be so nice?
Well, I've been told a lot of times the reason they turned out to be so nice was because they had such nice parents. And we were good to the kids, and we asked them to do things, they done it, and we told them when we went someplace to visit that they had to sit down and visit with us and behave themselves, and we never had to correct them when we were there. When we went there, they did as we asked them to. And when they went to school, we asked them. They did what they asked them to do. And I always told them, if you get in trouble in school and come home and tell me about it, I'll go back to the school and find out about it. And if you were in trouble and you thought you were in trouble then, you should wait till I get home. Then that's when you're going to be in trouble. And they listened to me. I never had to go to school about anything. And they did as we asked them to and told them to.
What's been your favorite part about being a dad?
Being a good one. Can't beat that. And when I get Father's cards and things on Father's Day, they all thank me for that and thank me for teaching them how to be a good farmer and father. And that makes me proud.
All of your kids are such hard workers. They all
Right.
work so hard, and you've worked very hard
Very hard.
your whole life.
A whole life.
What have been some of the favorite what's been your favorite work that you've done?
Well, farming was the favorite work, but I was in the bulldozing business for 25 years, and I enjoyed that. It's a lot of hard work, and I was used to hard work, and I liked it. And I operated a landfill in Carthage, Illinois for 4 years at just 2 different times. And I really liked that because people visited with me and I could stop and get off and talk with them. And when I was bulldozing, they wanted me running. They didn't want me off talking with somebody. But I did enjoy that.
And you worked very hard in your community too, that you gave back to your community through you helped in the schools. And why did you do that?
I like to work and I like to help people. I couldn't tell you all the people that I have helped, and I'm glad I did. And I have a motto that I always thought I went by. And it says that if you're wrong, if you're right, stay with it. And don't ever let anybody drag you down to their level. And that's what I have tried to be with. And I couldn't begin to tell you everything I've done for other people for nothing. And I enjoyed doing it. That's what I wanted to do. I said that's what the good Lord put me on earth for, was do for people.
No.
Close the door. Tommy, close this door. Thank
Love you,
you.
bud.
It's okay. It's all right.
Tommy, can you shut it all the way, bud?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay. You got it? Okay. Do you want to go out or do you want to stay here?
Are you guys done?
No, we're not done yet. Do you want to stay here? Okay. All right. She wants to stay here.
She's doing good.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, you're being a good girl.
Yep.
Sure are.
She is.
That's
All right,
what you're supposed to be.
So why did you marry Grandma?
Because I loved her, and she's always been a wonderful wife. Couldn't have been any better. And I know that we've had some disagreements, but we've always worked it out, and we've always had a good life, and I really do love her yet.
Oh, hello. Hi. Oh. Okay. Well, I think we're almost wrapping up. Do you have any advice that you would tell all of the little kids? What would you want them to know?
Well, listen to your parents and be honest with your parents and do what they ask you to do, and they'll make it fine if you have good parents. If you don't have good parents, then I wouldn't know how to tell you to raise them.
So I think people kind of know you to be kind of a rascal when you were younger.
Oh, probably.
Is that true? Oh, are you almost done?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, no.
When I was in Hamilton High School, me and some of the boys on our bus route, we went by a watermelon patch. And we decided one evening that we'd go to the watermelon patch to get a watermelon. Well, I had got a new wristwatch for Christmas with the expanded band, and I was really proud of that. But we just got out of the car and over the fence to get a watermelon, and somebody began shooting a shotgun. Well, we wasn't long getting out of there, and I got back in the car, and my wristwatch was gone. I was sick. So the next morning, we stopped to pick up their kids, and he got on the bus. And he held that watch up. He said, "Did anybody lose the wristwatch?" Billy never said a word, just as quiet. So one of the guys that was with us, now this is when I was a junior in high school, and when we see each other now, we go like this, and we know what we're talking about.
You never got it back.
Yeah, well, no, I wasn't going to admit I was over there.
Can I ask you about your mother?
My mother, sure.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, what was she like?
Very nice lady. Couldn't beat her. She didn't have anything to work with, and she was a hard worker, and she's always been good to Grace and I and everybody. She was just a good lady. I don't know what else to say about her. She just was a good lady.
You could tell the story about Robert being.
Hmm?
You could tell the story about Robert being missing and popping up.
Oh, well, okay. When Robert was in the Navy, he had abandoned ship 4 times. And at that time, it wasn't published on the television before it happened. And we had waited probably 4 months after we found out that he had abandoned ship. And we just worried about it. And then one day, she heard a knock on the front door. She opened the door, and there stood Robert. And she about had a heart attack. That was terrible. And at that time, the servicemen hitchhiked to get places. And people stop and pick them up. You can't do that now. But he got a ride nearly all the way home with one guy. And he said he'd been down the road probably 20 miles, and he reached under the cushion of his car seat and pulled out a gun. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to need this," he said. So he opened the glove compartment and put it away. And he then, when he got close to home, he drove extra miles to get Robert closer. But Robert said, "Boy, I'll never do that again." I said, "Boy, I sure hope not."
It seems like I remember a story about a chicken. When you were a boy, or maybe it was your brothers, did somebody stick their tongue out to a chicken?
Me? Yes, it was me. We always had a nest there on the porch, and we had these chickens, 2 chickens, hens there laying on eggs to hatch the eggs. And I was just probably 2 years old then. I walked by that chicken and stuck my tongue out at it, and I didn't more get it out till it pecked me on the chug. That's the last time I done that too. But I let out a scream, and Mom and Dad was at the barn milking, and she wasn't very long getting there. And then, when I was 2 years old, I was upstairs sleeping with my brother. We didn't have any, the windows was open, didn't have any screen doors or anything. And I crawled over him and crawled right out the window, fell from the upstairs window. And I broke my right shoulder bone. So all through life I was left-handed, except I always just used the other hand for sports. But then was a couple of pretty scary experiences.
Well, you sure have been a good grandpa. You've been a good grandfather to
Well,
me,
Thank you.
and we sure have a lot of really great memories.
I sure do.
Yeah.
And you haven't started on them, really.
What have you liked about being a grandpa?
Well, the grandchildren love me. That's the big thing.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. Okay, is there anything that I did not ask you about that any stories you want to tell me or anything that you want to have on tape?
No, I think there's a lot more, but I could go on for days.
Well, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did
Thank
a great job. Okay, I think we're good. I think it's a wrap.